Hey, and welcome to another Dark Souls challenge run. Today we're going to be seeing if I can beat Dark Souls as the Reaper. Rules are super simple. I can only use scythes, and everything that can be permanently killed has to die by the end of the run. This includes NPCs, NPC invaders, and all non-respawning enemies. Like I said, super simple. Now let's get into the run. I played part of this run live on my Twitch channel, hence the webcam and chat messages that'll sometimes be on the right side of the screen here. Since none of the classes start with a scythe, we are weaponless at the start of the run, which means punching the Asylum Demon to death again. Well, I've done it before, and I'm sure I'll do it again, so here we go. With the additional pressure of having a live audience, it took me a little over an hour to get out of the asylum, which is a bit embarrassing. But now that we're in the game proper, we can go get the first weapon of the run. The Great Scythe is just lying on the ground in the catacombs, near the hidden bonfire. The smart thing to do would have been to not rest at any of the bonfires in the catacombs so I could get the scythe, then hurl myself off a cliff to get back to Firelink. I did not do the smart thing. I am very underleveled for this area right now, and climbing out of the catacombs, again with a live audience, was pretty agonizing. But scythe in hand, we can actually start progressing through the game. I take the first name on my list, the Crestfallen Warrior. I don't know about Crest, but the Fallen bit sure was accurate. I guess no 1,000 souls for me. Gravity. Wait. Let's go take on the Undead Burg. I've made a quick pit stop at the Undead Merchant to pick up the Residence Key, because I don't want to risk not being able to get to Griggs before moving on to the boss. Taurus Demon is Taurus Demon. Since the scythe is from a mid-game area, it's more than enough to take the demon out in just a handful of attacks. When I'm not forgetting I have a dodge button, or hurling myself off the bridge, that is. And we can just sprint over to the bonfire by Andre, taking the shortcut past the armored boar. We'll be back to kill this guy and everyone else in the burg after we've dealt with the gargoyles. I go ahead and upgrade the scythe a couple of times, then kill the big knight guarding the Firekeeper soul, followed shortly by the non-respawning channeler on the second floor of the parish. Now time for the Gargs. I was having a lot of trouble with that fight, and I honestly have no idea why. I think it was probably at least in part due to the fact that I was fresh off of finishing my Nier Automata pod-only run, where I was just constantly zipping around. But I ended up getting the fight done off-stream, where I just had to actually be patient and not run in and try to face tank all the hits. Because it's the fucking bell gargoyles, I should not be getting stuck on these goobers. Sure enough, without an audience I was able to take them out by simply taking my time, and now we've got the first Bell of Awakening run. Now let's do some tidying up. None of the NPCs this early on the game can withstand more than 2 or 3 hits with the scythe, so the Undead Merchant goes down easy. The first Black Knight is easy enough to outrange and swipe at. The second one is a little more difficult, mostly because of the camera on those damn stairs, but I do get to show you the gloriously goofy backstab animation for the scythe that makes no sense whatsoever. I then rounded the corner to smack the pig on the ass a handful of times, and hey, I actually got the helmet drop. Sweet. I am so sorry, my sweet son child. Hey, Solaire's armor is pretty good though. I don't know if you've ever tried to kill the Hellkite Wyvern in Melee. I hadn't. It sucks. It was just like 10 minutes of luring it over to the stairs, then poking its toes once or twice, before falling down the stairs to avoid getting roasted, then repeating that until it eventually just phases out of existence with no fanfare. I picked up the Poison Bite ring from Oswald before murdering him because I figured it would be helpful in Blighttown. I freed Griggs and let him go to Firelink. Not entirely sure why, since I immediately went up and killed him, getting a spell and ring that I will never use. With Solaire's pants and a +5 scythe, taking down the Capra demon is a cakewalk. The dogs go down in a single swing, and the demon follows shortly after, even with my less than stellar gameplay. Just ignore the blood stain. Down in the depths, I dispatch the butchers and pick up the large ember. Then free Laurentius, who actually gets to live, for now. I'll need a +15 pyromancy flame to get Quaylana to spawn in, so might as well keep him around for now, as a convenient source of a pyromancy flame and its upgrades. Now for the depths. Everything dies down here. First up is the Channeler, who's easy to take down if you deal with the rats first. Then the Giant Rat, who goes down just as easily. Domhall struggles against the inevitable, but is no match for me. He falls before my scythe like all the others. Kirk shows up as a shadow of vengeance, but death is not something so easily defeated. Spines and swords of blood and steel bend and break before me. Even dragons, warped and mutated by the filth of a millennia, can only flail and writhe before the end. The scythe of the Reaper takes all. Every soul will be harvested and every body will fall. The decrepit, blighted ruins below offer no quarter either. Watchers with their poisoned darts and accursed creatures with their flailing tentacles do little to slow the tide as death marches ever forwards. The Man-Eater fails to live up to her name, and even the Arachnid queen of this filth-saturated hell. Though she spits and rages with the fires of her demon heritage, she stills and is rended cold by my blade like any other. Her brother too falls, though a little more literally, less to my hand and more to his own foolish, desperate loyalty to one who's already been taken by me and mine. The Pale Lady lives, for now, not by any virtue of her own, but because her lowly, forgotten servant has a role to play still. The Darkroot Basin, this hidden oasis of green in a dead and dying world, is left empty and void after I pass through it. Its lone, charred sentinel, the fearsome Hydra, the Golden Golem, and even Havel, the man more mountain than flesh. None of them pose a challenge, and none of them stand a chance of defying their fate. So in Sun's Fortress, by dropping down and killing the Titanite demons down there, I can pick up the regular scythe. I won't actually be using this, at least not in its current form. It has slightly better base damage than the Great Scythe, but has much worse dex scaling and doesn't inflict bleed. But I'll still be upgrading it to +10 so that I can turn it into the Lifehunt scythe later. There's not much that needs to be dealt with in the funhouse. Just the lightning spear mimic, the fireball singing giant who gets bled dry, Rickard who's always a pain in the ass because stairs are never your friends in these games, and the crestfallen merchant, who I may have accidentally attacked while setting up my recording software. So no magic or lightning resist rings for me, I guess. Whoops. And of course the Iron Golem. I actually got him to lose his balance, then proceeded to miss almost every hit that I could have used to knock him off the edge. But it's fine. The only real threat in this fight is gravity, so with some careful footing and being very careful to not get grabbed, he goes down quick. Made a quick detour to free Big Hat Logan and send him off to Firelink where I can kill him without worrying about losing the loot. And here's where the real games begin. The bridge gargoyles ain't shit. Inside the castle, I clear out all the mimics, then progress Sigurd's quest just enough to get the life ring before murdering him for a way better ring. No way that comes back to bite me later. So, I did a bit of an oopsie when dealing with Lautrec. I wasn't paying attention and killed him before dealing with his goons. I tried to get killed and retry the fight, but no dice. It's not a deal breaker for me because they're phantoms anyways, which means they primarily exist in another timeline. Or something. Honestly, the in-game explanation of the online components are a bit lost on me. Time for trouble and make it double. Let's get on with the hardest fight in the base game. Having good damage and poise actually makes this fight easier. Who would have thought? It only took me around 7 or 8 attempts to kill the bastards, which is actually really good for me, because this fight just breaks my brain, and I think I will always be ass at it. Once I get to phase 2, it's a cakewalk, but getting there can be an absolute nightmare. But not this time. I have become death, and soon I'll start looking like it. With fast travel unlocked and all the P-gates open, the game has finally opened up and we can go do whatever. So let's go get our next weapon. At the asylum, I go kill the Juice Man, then enact some sweet, sweet cathartic vengeance against the asylum demon's big brother. Yeah, doing just a bit more damage now. The last thing to do down here is kill the Black Knight, then pick up the doll. Time to commit a tragedy. On the way, I quickly stunlock Haster's avatar to death, smack the undead dragon in the feet until it's a dead dragon. Then, with a heavy heart, I go do my duty and reap the soul of the crossbreed. She tries to pull some Deathly Hallows shenanigans, but unluckily for her, I've got sweeping attacks and she leaves footprints. Then I can go use her soul to get our final weapon of the game, the Lifehunt Scythe, which, when fully upgraded, will have more base damage, higher scaling, and more bleed damage than the Great Scythe, with the downside of it causing bleed buildup on myself as well. Sure would be nice to have the Bloodbite ring! I procrastinate hunting down the next few bosses by killing some of the NPCs I left earlier, namely Big Hat Logan, the Eggman, and Quelaag's sister. I want to deal with the 4 kings first, killing the Seal Keeper, lowering the water, then remembering that I haven't killed Scythe, so let's go do Darkroot Basin first. I steamrolled literally everything here, starting with Dusk, then moving on to the goodest of girls. I tested out the Lifehunt Scythe and, yep, that'll do. That will do. These 3 random cats put up more of a fight than most of the bosses in this run. The butterfly is about as sturdy as you'd expect a butterfly to be. The only reason this fight took more than 30 seconds is that it refused to come down somewhere I could smack it. I joined the Cat Covenant for just long enough to kill its senior members. The cat herself, unfortunately, can't actually be killed. I mean, I depleted her health bar, but the dialogue strongly implies that she just phases into another reality or something. And there's another area left void of life. Since the key to the 4 kings is doing as much damage as fast as possible, I'll actually be using the Great Scythe. With a bit of running back and forth, I got it up to plus 15, making it do slightly more damage than the Lifehunt Scythe, since it's only at plus 4 right now, and I can keep wailing away without worrying about insanguinating myself, and wail away I do. I have enough poise to just tank damage and keep swinging, and one by one, the 4 1/3 kings go down. On to Lord Soul number 2, the Bed of Jank. Past the area cleared by Ceaseless, I take out the centipedes and Kirk, who puts up about as much resistance as he did the first time. Then quickly dispatch the Asylum Demon number 3, who's actually the easiest of the 3 in this run, and I think the first boss I've actually gotten a bleed proc on. The theme of these late game areas is cake. I hadn't heard or seen much of anything regarding scythes before starting this run, so I just assumed that they weren't very good. Turns out, no, they're extremely good, which is nice because after spending a month grinding out 100% in Nier Automata, a nice quick playthrough of a game is just what I needed. The second boss in this hellhole boss rush goes down just as easily as the first. Once he actually decided to approach me instead of just standing in the lava like a jackass that is. The Flamebite Ring of course helps for these fights, but really once you fought them a couple times, most bosses are pretty trivial when you have a halfway decent build. In Lost Izalith, Kirk makes his third and final appearance. He tries to be sneaky and ambush me while I'm busy with the witch. He tries and he fails. You can't sneak up on death, you foolish mortal. Now it's time to go play exterminator and kill some bugs. The first tether thing is of course simple as pie, just run over and smack it. I used the quit out method to reset and managed to smack the second tether without getting punched by the tree. Then immediately threw myself to my death. But it only takes a bit of positioning and a lot of luck to make the jump, and there's 2 out of 4 Lord Souls. Now onto the archives. The Crystal Knight and Crystal Lizard are a little more than a speed bump on the way to the first Scythe encounter. There are 2 passive Cthulhu Maidens that drop a couple spells below the gramophone thing. There's also a Mimic right before the archives exit. So I completely forgot that you have to deal with Sigurd in Blighttown to be able to spawn in the Golem with his daughter. So there's 2 things that get to not be murdered. There's 2 golden golems on these irritating ass pillars with their janky ass geometry. Scythe got a little bit of help from a rogue clam that somehow managed to follow me into the arena, but other than that, he's as simple as usual. Just stick on the tentacles and get to slashing. The Great Scythe will be doing more than enough damage for me to coast through the rest of the run. Now that I no longer need the Anor Londo bonfire for anything, I decided it was time to return it to its true, dark, desolate form. I can't actually hit the princess with my scythe, but she's also not really alive, so I chuck a knife at her and plunge the land into darkness. Let the reaping begin. 2 NPCs show up to punish me for my transgression against the Lords of Light, not understanding that I am the embodiment of the natural state of this world, black emptiness. The Firekeeper makes the same mistake and meets the same fate. Gwendolyn, forgotten child, maintaining the illusion of warmth in this necropolis, only prolongs his end. But soon enough, he joins his servants in the cold ground of this abandoned seat of a long-dead empire. I upgraded my Pyromancy Flame to plus 15 so that I could go kill Quaylana. Took out the Bible study group here, where it was nice and bright. Then was helpfully reminded by chat that Quaylana only spawns in if you haven't killed the Bed of Chaos, so there's yet another soul not claimed by my scythe. Well, while we're down here, let's go clear out Ash Lake. The Hydra is about as much of a pain in the ass as it normally is. Then the Everlasting Dragon Youngling is everlasting, right? Yeah, no, that makes sense. Feeling right at home in the catacombs, I blaze a trail of corpses in my wake, felling necromancers, demons, and black knights with equal uncaring precision. Patches attempts to fool the Reaper and joins so many other souls in whatever afterlife exists in this warp reality we call Lordran. The abominable skeletal blacksmith returns to the natural order, and Pinwheel is technically a boss. The Tomb of the Giants only has a single Black Knight, and one last glint of sanity to kill before the imposter. Miasmas and fragile underlings are no match for the true strength of a Reaper. Even when he uses all of his cunning to pin me in a corner, I still emerge victorious through sheer strength of will and steel. Now, a quick side quest to deal with. Unironically, the most complicated part of the run. This one fucking blacksmith. I can hit him with my scythe. Once. Before he moves out of my reach. I get one-handed heavy attack to kill him, and he has a shocking amount of health. I had to go to the Valley of the Drakes, which actually turned out to be a good thing because I had completely forgotten about the undead dragon that's lurking over there. I picked up the red tearstone ring, equipped that, put enough levels into attunement to equip power within, then slapped on some gold pine resin, and that was finally enough to take the bastard out. With all the Lord Souls acquired and most of the NPCs released from this mortal coil, the main thing left to do is conquer the Abyss itself. So let's finally get Drip the fuck out. Now, I suck at the DLC. I've only played through it like twice, and was fully expecting everything here to be a brick wall I'd have to bash my head against to get past. This Fortunately, did not end up being the case, because, as I've said before, but it's worth repeating, the Scythe is really fucking good, and Poise is arguably the most broken system in this game. Sanctuary Guardian went down on my first attempt, in only like 5 hits. Chester, who I'd never actually fought before, has a really fucking weird moveset. He has a crossbow, but if you stay at close range, he just spins around and tries to kick you in the shins over and over again. I gave Artorias 1 attempt on stream before calling it a day. And the next day, when I booted up the game, I killed him on my first attempt that session. I wasn't able to knock him out of his buffing animation. I'm sure it's doable with this weapon, but I was usually far enough away that I only had time for a single attack before his AoE. Not that it mattered. I was in the zone, and Artorias clearly wasn't. I don't think I've stressed enough how good this weapon is. The forward momentum allows me to strafe just out of range, then heavy attack, to both move myself in range and deal heavy damage immediately following an enemy attack. Helped especially by the fact that the sweeping attack of the heavy attack has a absolutely massive hitbox. I rested, then came back to deal with What's-Her-Face, giving her Artorias' soul before taking her. There are a couple mimics here to take out, then Go shoots down Calamite for us, and I thank him with my weapon. He actually does a shocking amount of damage and likes to try to sit on you, which is terrifying. I suck at the Calamite fight. The hitboxes for most of his attacks just don't make sense to me. Luckily, the Black Knight armor is tough enough, and I'm vigorous enough, that it doesn't really matter if I'm bad at the fight, because I can just tank damage and poise my way through smaller attacks, long enough to bleed the overgrown lizard dry. And we're finally at the last boss of the DLC. I realized a bit late that I had forgotten to pick up the silver pendant, but again, I can just take every hit right to my fucking face. Even his Murder Thrasher combo. First try Guardian, second try Artorias, first try Calamite, second try Manus. For once, the DLC didn't delay the video for a week. Nice. My tactic for this fight was mostly just to bait out the larger attacks, then smack his swollen hand a couple times. I tried to dodge out of the way of the magic attacks, but honestly just blocking to mitigate a little bit of the damage was generally the better move. We have a handful of NPCs in the base game to clean up, so let's go do that, then finish the run. I totally forgot about the shitslinger. Andre's time has finally come. Helpful as he was, this world is coming to an end, and he doesn't deserve to die in the dark. The giant blacksmith follows suit, and his death throes are larger and therefore more tragic. And here we are again. Gwyn gave me a bit of trouble, like he usually does, but after only a couple more attempts, even he will die. Spacing is the real MVP of this run. Momentum included, I can outrange just about everything. Gwyn included. I come out the other side with cuts, bruises, and burns, sure, but no one can hold out against death forever, even with the power of the primordial flame. This world has been strung out in the light for long enough. It's finally time to fulfill my purpose and plunge this cursed realm into a long overdue soothing silence.